Welcome to Zero Gravity's podcast today. My good friend Pong. He is the founder and CEO of Exponent. Before we get too deep into Exponent, give us a brief introduction into yourself and what led you to founding Exponent AI.
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for having me, and thanks to CRG podcast. I'm just super stoked to be here. I think my humble beginning starts in the bull market of 2018. So you could say I am crypto class of 2018. So originally I was part of the company called OpenSea. We built the first L2 infrastructure on Ethereum. Then 2021 happened, worked on that project for a couple of years. The company got acquired, and like many others, right in the middle of basically seeing so much growth within crypto, really asked ourselves like, what is next? And that's a question I had to ask myself a lot in 2021. And around that time, I had between me and a couple of others, we were investing pretty heavily in crypto, and what we sort of uncovered is that it's just becoming harder and harder to be a crypto investor. If you think it's harder in 2021, it is significantly harder, right? In 2024, so many projects, so many things happening, so many data points or different projects that are just like coming out of in the forefront, and so it was at that time when I really asked the questions between me and my team that say, hey, what can we do to make the life of a crypto investor easier? And at the time, my colleague was running a hedge fund. And if you are part of a hedge fund, you always have that person, right? That's like working on looking at all the projects that are coming out, exploring different theses, exploring your own thesis, trying to understand what's going on within crypto. So there's a gap between what is the insight or how to get insight within this space. That is just like very hard. So I think my sort of like North Star has always been, how do we make crypto investing or understanding Web3 easier, right? Easier for an average person. So that's how we basically came to Exponent as the original idea. So me, others who are well-versed in both Web3 and machine learning, decades of machine learning experience, really got together and say, hey, look, where can we use applied AI, right, within Web3? Of course, lots of things have changed since then, but that's always been our core thesis, is that intersection between Web3 and AI before it really became a meme.
And let's talk a little bit about, when we say, Web3 investors, are we talking, say, VCs, people that are investing in syndicates? Is it the degen that's, swapping between Moonwell and Hyperliquid? Like, talk to us a little bit about who the intended audience is.
Right. If you really squint hard enough, everyone, all the problems are shared across all of these different personas, right? I think then it's the question of like, what is your intention? The intention is to invest, intention is to trade. It's the intention to understand, right, what is going on or what's happening with your assets, and that's always the same underlying theme, which is one: what are you trying to do? What kind of insights or what kind of decisions that you want to make, right? And that's usually what governs how you go ahead and try to generate that insight. For example, you're trying to hold on to an asset, or you're trying to understand what's going on with your assets. You're trying to find new opportunity. If you generalize deep enough, that problem expands across all human personas, right, within Web3. And it's just a question of like, what kind of information do you need to have access at how fast of a rate you need to have that access by? That's how I think about it. Definitely something I see myself as like a retail, a typical retail investor, like coming into the market for the first time. But your journey will always be the same. It's no matter what.
Got it. So for people that are unfamiliar with Exponent AI, tell us a little bit about what you guys are hoping to like accomplish there, and then we'll go into kind of the tool set. So it seems like make it easy for investors to actually know what's going on with their investments, do research.
Right, right. It's I think again, if we take a flashback to 2021, I was with the hedge fund manager at the time and said, can we make this person, can we scale this person, right? If you have an analyst, let's say her name is Alice, can you scale Alice to every investors within Web3? So that sort of like has been the thesis, but the technology that enabled that really was available about the beginning of last year, 2023, when we saw what large language models can actually do, what actions can they perform on behalf of your average users. So that's how we arrive at the product. So our first product that we shipped over this last month at DevCon is called Exponent Analyst. It is the culmination of like the embodiment, right, of that person that we wish we had in our trading or investment journey, embodied as a product, as an AI agent. So that's sort of like this is where we see is if you're an investor or if you're an average user looking at this, I always wanted to make sure that no matter what we do, there's like an interface that we own, sort of like relationship with customers, and we can control and make that user experience like reliable, useful, easy to use as much as possible. But over time, that vision just really expands, and with the technology that we have available, I see ourselves as the what we call the natural language layer for all of Web3. Right? There's always this discussion about if you're building an AI, you're just building a ChatGPT wrapper, right? From me, like, sure, yes, we do build a wrapper, but the wrapper itself is a wrapper on top of Web3, where the wrap is the natural language, which is what you, as a human being, as an investor, as a user, that's your ultimate interface. You just have a question, you have an insight, whatever it is, you generalize as much as possible, and at the end of the day, what you want is those answers all in natural language.
Yeah, so let's go through an example, and I think this will be very illustrative for the audience. So let's say I'm a retail investor, and I'm very curious about, let's say, Arbitrum, and I'm like, Arbitrum, there's investment opportunities in Optimism, in Base. Maybe I'm curious, like, how the heck, Hyperliquid came out of nowhere and flipped both of those guys. So talk to me a little bit about like how somebody would do some analysis on, let's say, like the Hyperliquid situation or Arbitrum.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I swear, I think I asked the exact same question just less than a month ago, right, about Hyperliquid. And you'll be surprised. So because we have a product out, we're meeting users, we did a ton of product development and talking to customers. And the real question that user asks is much less sophisticated, much more generalized than you would believe otherwise. Most of the time, what user asks is something along the line of, tell me about Arbitrum, or just tell me about Hyperliquid, right? It's I think as ultimately, like, you expect user to be more sophisticated or ability to articulate. Let's say if you're more have higher degree of technical sophistication, you would explore what's the feature difference between our Arbitrum optimistic rollup? What's the feature difference between building an L2 based on the Arbitrum stack versus the optimistic stack? Give me a step-by-step analysis based on technology, community, different types of adoptions and things like that. That's not at all what the user asks, right? The user asks, tell me about Arbitrum. Just like explain Arbitrum. And so that actually is a major insight for us. It's like, well, not only are we building the system to answer user question, but user might have a question that they don't even know how to express. That's like our day one like product philosophy for us when we go meet the market. And so let's say if we illustrate that question, right? You give the loaded question to an AI agent. The AI agent, the analyst, breaks down that question into a series of things that it would do. For example, it might infer, since you asked it to tell you about Arbitrum, that the user would like to know the latest updates about Arbitrum. the analysts have access to the ability to use CoinGecko as a tool. So perhaps a user is curious about price actions. Right? Perhaps the user is curious about what's going on in Twitter or any mentions about Arbitrum. Maybe if the user expresses that they're technical, perhaps the user would like to understand what exactly is Arbitrum. So the agent itself infer all these steps, right? Infer all these things it will do, and like any good analyst would do, or a human delegate would do, right? I'm trying to understand whether this is what the user want. So we'll propose list of actions. I will go ahead and go off into the wild lands of Web3 to try to achieve or obtain that information and present it to user in a concise way. So behind the scene, once you hit confirm with those state plan, it will explore analysis, getting deep insight, summarize everything it could find with those plan in mind, and then answer user back in ultimately natural language. So all this integration, all of these technical details is still inspectable. The user will retain the ability to explore what the agent is up to and what the agent has access to. But ultimately, that's the ultimate answer, right? Tell me about Arbitrum, in which case the analyst would be able to tell you about the Arbitrum network.
So essentially, if I'm following correctly, it's the user, and I'm actually guilty of this myself. Usually, I'll just say research Arbitrum, right. And then I'll ask follow-up questions to it. So then you guys will go in, maybe you get the research or tell me about Arbitrum. You do some kind of prompt enrichment and give it an additional set of instructions because that users, even though they're putting in something relatively terse, that's they're looking for secondary and tertiary decisions to be made there. Right. And then you guys go to a CoinGecko, different kinds of APIs that are available and pull out that information. Then what do you kind of give them? Like a report with citations? Talk to us for people that have never kind of visited.
Yeah. The product itself, so all the intermediary steps, that's a sort of it's how we get there, right? Like inferring what the user's intent actually is on top of what their original input or inquiry is. And that's just something that if you do on other non-specialized systems, you want to be able to have that kind of inference. You want to be able to infer that's exactly what the user wants. But because we after having over 1,000 users using our platform, we know how, or we know what is expected of the user. And ultimately, which surprise you is the user doesn't actually want a full-length report because they don't have time for that, right? So ultimately, the user want not more than a few paragraphs, like a few sets of answers that best represent a concise summary about what they want. But at the same time, they want the ability to inspect how those answers is arrived in the first place, exploring sources, citation. So what you asked about CoinGecko, that's one of the tools that we enable on the analyst on the application. But there are many more tools as one would expect if you are a human crypto analyst. Right? You have to have access to much more quantitative tools: Twitter, Discord, Telegram, documentation, technical writings, technical reports that's generated for this topic. And the magic behind that is we integrate all of them. Right? We make them all available, and we give this agentic interface that actually not only give user access to that data, but ultimately saving them time. Right? No more.
Yeah.
I think one takeaway from me, people ask me in 2025 what I predicted will go away, is by end of the year, people would just stop going on 5-6 different tabs to explore an idea, right? Or just to understand something. They would stop exploring or having so many windows open, right? It would ultimately just be a prompt. And wherever that prompt ended up hitting, that it's the AI agent that opening up all those 5 different tabs, and then come back to you with just an answer.
Yeah, it seems like everything kind of breaks down in this way. Like when we were first in crypto, we were approving bridging transactions and swapping transactions, and now a lot of things, for better or for worse, are moving to intense and more solver-based design. It seems like you guys are also using somewhat of a solver-based design. Could you talk a little bit about how the agent is actually getting all of this information?
Yeah. Oh, off the record, but do you want me to go through Vector 3, or should we go through still on exploring?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can go through vector 3 right now if you want.
Let me think. Yeah, I
It
think
seems like vector 3 does the router and
right.
probably does the scored solver. So actually,
Right.
it would make sense too. So here, we'll cut this part out. So I want to go into, because I know you guys have had a recent announcement. So aside from just the analyst, you guys have announced vector 3. Could you tell us a little bit about like what is vector 3 and what's going to be its impact?
Right. So, as we're building out the AI agent itself, and of course, like, with members of my team, me, myself included, been building on LLMs and seeing pretty much how hard it is to build and train and optimize for this sets of problem, right? Like ultimately, we want to be the natural language layer for all of Web3. But in order to achieve that, you can't just build the AI agent, right? It's insufficient. Sure, you have access to open source model, you can build all this tooling, you can build all this infrastructure, but there still is a need to. So it's a question of like, how do you get the edge? How do you make the system that's like truly tens of times better, or 99.999% more reliable at answering the question? And ultimately, that led us to developing our own model. So Vector 3 is two layers, or I would say two components of Vector 3. One is Vector 3 models, which are open source, fine-tuned large language models that are focused on searching and querying Web3. Excuse me. And then the second layer of that is the Vector 3 network, which is if you, let's say, explore kind of like what is most of this cost that goes into training the model, right? It's not just the inference or compute to train the model. It's the need to maintain, adopt the infrastructure, build the tooling to build that data sets to generate that model. So at the very top, you have to say the analyst AI. At the middle layer, you have this Vector 3 models, which is the underlying large language model that our AI agent would adopt or utilize. And behind all that, behind the scene, how we generate the data sets to train this Vector 3 models is through Vector 3 network. So if you visualize like different parts of the stack, you have the agent, you have the AI models themselves, right, specific to Web3, bread and butter, and finally, the thing that makes it viable in the first place to have an AI model that knows exactly how to answer any question about Web3 is through building this decentralized network, this decentralized infrastructure to incentivize and generate answers for those questions, right? Building the largest training data sets in all of Web3.
And I want to go to each part of that stack, but actually I want to zoom out real quick because I want to know like why is it so difficult to get this type of like Web3 data, and like why is it not just sufficient for me to type into Claude or ChatGPT and be like, hey, get me the price of a certain kind of like Pong, or
Right.
tell me a little bit about like why this is difficult.
Yeah. It's so there's two major reasons. The first one is typically if you ask, let's say if it's ChatGPT, right? You ask, or any models really, you can ask a generic question. Let's say, who's the founder of Ethereum, right? Although funnily enough, it's probably a contentious question. You will find 10 people within crypto, and then one of them will say, hey, actually this person is also the founder. So that aside, all models will say the founder of Ethereum is Vitalik Buterin, right? Versus, let's say, another question, which is what you proposed to, what is the price of this particular CryptoPunk, right? You will, if you ask that question, there's high likelihood you will get an answer, but perhaps that answer came from a data set, right? That is from 2015, 2016, 2017, which does not reflect the current price of that asset. And so for a real-time system, there is this development of what's called a RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. So generation is an inference, or whatever the AI outputs as an answer. Retrieval augmented is just to say that the AI first to understand full picture of the answer, gets that data from somewhere, inject that data into the prompt, and using the data it found, answer the question, right, in natural language. So simply put, that's the first part of that answer. The first part of the problem is, okay, well, for this real-time data, which is unlike the question of who's the founder of Ethereum, I'll need to retrieve that data from somewhere, right? And then provide the answer. Now, the second part where this is challenging, you will see all the different types of AI, which is, every major AI labs from Google, Perplexity, OpenAI will always have some element of web-based RAG, right? For example, even if you're on Brave right now, you can get integrate Brave search into your answer. If you're on Google, obviously Gemini powered by Google Search. Same thing with Search GPT, with OpenAI and Bing partnership. And many times, often, lots of things are indexed on the web, right? This is the job of these major search engine providers, to index the entire web. The challenge that is very specific to Web3 is most often time, the data that is most meaningful to you are not indexable by the web, right? We're talking about, let's say, if you just explore what you query or ask within your Web3 journey in the past month, it will, to some extent, involve things like that you have to find on Twitter, things that you have to find in technical documentation. We're talking some of these things might be in different file format, right? Not indexable on HTML. You'll run into data that are very structured, pretty much have zero meaning, right? Like you're looking at block explorer data, you're looking at like wallets transaction data, which is in blobs of data that's very, very hard to understand. And so it is that second part, first and second part, so where we not only do RAG or retrieval augmented generation, but we enable it in such way that the handling of Web3 data, the query in order to achieve or obtain that data, is all integrated. It's all part of the same bundle. It's all part of the same system in such a way that you can use the system once and it will all sort of like have all battery included, right? Every data sources that you require to answer a full picture is there. And so on that middle layer, on the Vector 3 models, not only is the model, just AI model, but we also plug in what we call different tools or retrieval backends, right? That the AI can selectively choose. For example, if it's a question about CryptoPunk, maybe it is best to use OpenSea, right? Which is the largest, let's say, NFT market on the planet. But it takes a different level or a different layer of integration that otherwise systems like Gemini would have no idea. Right? Gemini would have no idea how to look up or how to look up specific data from OpenSea as an integration example.
So just to summarize for the audience, it seems like, hey, when I just chat into ChatGPT, yeah, they're going to do some kind of RAG, they're going to do some kind of augmentation of what's out on the internet. But most of these, LLMs or Gemini or OpenAI, they're not really focused on Web3 data. So they're not looking at Block Explorer. They might not have hooks into Twitter, or they might not have hooks into all of these different data sources that you guys are specific. So when you're not only fine tuning the models for Web3, you're also doing this like active retrieval process to enrich. Is that about right?
Yes. Not only that, right, but the training or the fine-tuning of these models is to be sophisticated enough to know that based on the queries or the questions given, what tool to use, what tool to selectively call for, and how to interpret some of those data that is retrieved from those tools. So the rack itself is an end-to-end solution. The model is fine-tuned for every single steps in that process, right? From choosing, let's say we infer based on original question, like who owns or how much is this CryptoPunk? So it will infer that, well, this needs to obtain one of the tool that we need is going to be OpenSea. And the fine-tuned model also know that, hey, for OpenSea, these are all the functions that we could call, right? It's sort of like if you literally think of one data source as like a tool, as multiple ways to use the tool. And the AI needs to be trained to know that, okay, I would use, say, NFT search, right? Or I would put this address or NFT collection to get the final results, which is the price of this particular CryptoPunk. So it's fine-tuned for that end-to-end process of taking the query, understanding what needs to call. So behind the scene, that's the 2 of our 3 AI model versus the vector 3 router. So the router understands what data source to pull from, and vector 3 LAM, which is a large action model, knows exactly how to call, how to use that tool to process the results of the answer and answer the query.
And then you have, if I'm not mistaken, also a scorer which will evaluate the quality of the answer. Could you talk a little bit about the scorer, and then we can go in probably to the network as well?
Yeah. So vector 3 score is definitely a instrumental part of this. Within AI research, you in the audience might be familiar with the concept of like RLHF, or reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is to hyper generalize is for most for what we know so far about how to best train an AI, you have to bring in a human into the loop, right? And the human either generates the data sets, or the human evaluate the results of the data sets to say, okay, this result is good. This is the best result. This result is bad. We'll give it bad score. And end to end, this has been development of a process for AI for decades. Since LLMs, and there's a paper that came out last year about basically it's called concept is called LLM as a judge, which is to use another AI model as the means to qualify, evaluates the quality of an answer from another LLM, right? So people ask me, oh, but then if you have an LLM that's so good at evaluating the answer, why don't you just use that LLM, right? But turns out grading, let's say an example, grading a math problem versus generating the result or the answer to a math problem is a very different task, right? It's for the result, or measuring the quality of the results can be done much easier. Let's say if you have a certain answer, you can evaluate based on the dimension of how concise it is, how accurate is it, using the right tool. Is it fits within a certain parameter of the things that you wanted to score the model for, and that's formed the basis for our vector 3 scorer model. And so at the end of the day, the vector 3 scorer evaluate the entire, or what we call chain of inferences, all the traces that goes into all these different AI model, and give it a objective score. Now, how does this fit into a whole picture, right? So you go to what you alluded earlier about vector 3 network. We're all familiar with Bitcoin, right? And many people have since seen that there are more ways than one to utilize or incentivize this global network of competition. And that competition is literally finding a hash, right? Finding a pre-image to a hash to maintain a network. And you're able to harness like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of compute resources and computers to find the answer to that hash. The idea for vector 3 network is very much in a similar vein. What if instead of finding the answer to a hash, it's finding the answer to a question? And that question is question about Web3. And so, if I were to illustrate that RAG process again, you could imagine tens and thousands of different machines, right, all running a minor node or inference nodes with this entire integration into all of Web3. They're all competing to find the best answer. So back to the same question about CryptoPunk, maybe same thing. Like I want to know the price of this particular CryptoPunk. Maybe the first machine, or the first answer, is trying to use Block Explorer for it. Probably not a good idea. Second answer tries to use web search for it. again, probably not going to get the best result. And then you have one machine in particular that uses CoinGecko or uses a OpenSea as a tool. So correctly using the tool, correctly interpreting the answer, where the answer is relevant to the question, right? You have the answer, right? You have the best answer out of all the bunch. And so what Vector 3 network is, it offers a reward for the winning answer, for the winning inferences. And in a machine learning term, these rewards is a single parameter, is a single feedback to the data. But we're looking, of course, in Web3, that reward also could just be a token. So when we imagine this network, the goal of the network is to generate and incentivize biggest, largest, most created data sets about Web3 search and Web3 answers. And by utilizing what Web3 is really good at, right, it's incentive mechanism design, orchestrating these different network infrastructure, like we now know them as DePIN, to solve particular sets of problem that is unique and very difficult for a single company to do alone. Right? If let's say Exponent wants to do this in a completely centralized way, how much efforts is required to gather compute resources to bring in human data labelers? But with innovation that we have now, the vision for Vector 3 network is, can we harness all this available compute, all these different AI capabilities to build the largest training data sets for Web3, and then use those data sets to build on and train these open source Vector 3 models, right? It's really us exploring how companies like Anthropic, companies like OpenAI, all these big AI labs could be done as a decentralized infrastructure or cooperatively owned networks, right? That generates this final output.
Yeah, to say it's a very exciting future. And I want to touch on another point that I don't think we mentioned too much is this verifiable inference and how you guys are kind of installing trust and verification in the platform.
Yeah, I think the people ask whether decentralized like DAI is a meme, and you'll hear debates, right? Whether decentralized AI is real, decentralized AI is useful, decentralized AI is here or it's not here yet. As we were building or envisioning how we would build the system, one thing that's very clear is that while the AI research labs, all the usual suspects are just simply throwing compute at building the largest, biggest AI models possible, and that's where majority of the research is going to. The subsection within AI and Web3 that has to do with verifiable inferences, so verifying that an AI receives an input, right? It's certain input and generate an output without biases or without knowing whether or not like something else was contaminated in that inference process. So in a way, in Web3 term, trustless verifiable inferences is a breakthrough that makes Vector 3 network actually possible. Right, so let me give you an example. Very crypto economic terms, if you build a different reward models and tokenize rewards for the best answer, there's nothing stopping, right, the scorer model, the scorer node, to give whoever is their friends, right, or colluding with a certain minor nodes to give that the best answer. And you can share the answers. This is an area that Web3 and crypto in general has been spending so much time and efforts on research and development. And after years of research, trusted execution environment or a way to do verifiable general compute is now possible. Like we actually get to a point now that like every, not just AI model, but generally all compute can be verifiable. And this is absolutely massive. And so verifiable inferences is an important part of building Vector 3 network. in a way that basically make it possible in the first place, right? We can actually do it in a truly secure, trustless way that would not get exploited.
Absolutely. It's so interesting to hear about how you guys are building this network. And I'm curious, like, what kind of, collaborations or partnerships have made this possible?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I would say partnerships and collaborations would go into two forms. One of which is data integration. We are to date we have done tens of thousands of appearances, onboarding like over 1,000 users, but there's just so much more work to do. And part of that work is bringing in every possible domain or dimensions of Web3 data onto this platform. And lots of projects, lots of data provider, lots of integrations to existing Web3 tool that we're going to be onboarding over the next couple of months to actually making this an aggregation of all those platforms over natural language. The second component to that is the decentralized AI part, right? The fact that now TEE ML or trusted execution environment over machine learning is now not just a tech demo, right? It's real, which means we can start developing that technology right now. So all the different DAI platform infrastructure that makes it available, and I think COG envisioning that like to make this vision possible for an AI developer by bringing all that under the same platform is a very strong and very compelling vision for the builder. Because as we're evaluating how we would go about building Vector 3 network in the first place, right, it's going to be such an amalgamation of different tools, different tech stack, different infrastructure provider. But the fact that if you can have the same, all these compute resources, decentralized GPU, you have LLM inferences that are surfing on the same network, you have a way of paying for compute, transacting over such compute, fine-tuning, building that data set, storing that data sets, all under one platform. That's something that is required to make systems like this available. So I think it truly is, going back to the original question of like, why do we need DAI, right? It is such a way that you can reimagine totally new bonkers systems, right? That no one has imagined before. And I think the utility and the product development in this space moving forward would be very interesting. There's already so many AI developers that are looking at decentralized AI or Web3 tech as the foundation. And I think 2025 will be a very interesting year for DAI as we finally start to see real applications and utility, like, for example, something that Vector 3 is building.
Yeah, I think it's such an exciting future. I've often been saying, or you'll see a lot of tweets going out about this. I think there will be more on-chain agents than regular Web3 users in 2025. But
Right.
maybe I'm being a bit aggressive with my guesses. But talk to us a little bit about some of the milestones that people can look forward to from you guys.
Yeah. I think, well, I wouldn't go as far to say that vision for having more agents than humans is possible. But I think crypto as a whole, when that future becomes available, it's going to happen very fast. I think the real flippening should be whether we'll have AI flip over number of daily active users within crypto within 2025, and I think we will get there, right? So one of the milestone is if you explore all these different AI agents, and we in talk with a bunch of Web3 AI agent project. One of the clearest roadblocks is understandability of Web3, right? So, excuse me. So let's say if you are a Web3 AI agent trader, you have to understand what you're trading. You have to understand what's going on with your assets. You have to understand where it's best to optimize that liquidity, right? What's going on? What's social sentiment? How does this project work? So these understandability is a big blocker for Web3 AI agents right now. So one of the very near-term Q1 milestone for us is enabling Exponent Analyst, not as a single UI-driven, user-driven product or SaaS, right? But also a part of the Web3 AI agent stack, such that like if you are building Web3 agents, you could plug into our API and have that search layer, that understandability layer, all done for you, right? So for us, can we the milestone is like, can we speed up effectiveness? Can we speed up the development, but also improve the effectiveness of these Web3 AI agents? So that's going to be very, very early Q1 for us, is making this a platform. Other milestones are things like adding more integration. Right? We keep one of the benefits of talking to real users is we know exactly what to build. We let them inform what our milestones should be, and one of which is, people just want to know about meme coin. They want to know about liquidity pool. They want to know about stakes data, and most of the time, this data is very real time. People want to know about trend. So going back to your first question, that's like, you have to know about Hyperliquid to ask about Hyperliquid, right? So how do you go more than generalize or terse than tell me about Hyperliquid? It's tell me about something. It's tell me about something that's interesting about NFT, something that's interesting about NFT on Solana, or find me a project within this crypto AI dimension. So the last feature for analysts in Q1 that we want to ship within our roadmap is making that generalizability in such way that the user doesn't actually have to know what they want to know. Right? We kind of like know ahead of time, and we enable the Exponent Analyst as the exploration layer to actually give them something that's interesting, something that they did not expect to see. We already have something in mind on how we want to build that, and so for us, in the short-term milestone, that's going to really, really spike our current traction at the moment, because that's the exact same thing. List of things that same users that we've met have been asking for. That's the things I'm most excited about for near-term features and milestones. But more importantly, making or pushing Vector 3 out the door. I think we did a lot of talks about wanting to see decentralized AI. Now that the tech is here, let's build something, right? And so prioritization for us is what is the first minimum usable, viable Vector 3 looks like, and shipping that using decentralized AI as quickly as possible, and actually going to market.
Absolutely. I think it's a very exciting future. And finally, where can people learn more about the product, kind of sign up, and then also keep in touch with you online?
Yeah, please, we're on Twitter. You can check us out at Exponent_AI. We also have a website at exponent.ai. We welcome all users. So the product is live at the moment. The Analyst AI agent that I've mentioned is live at analyst.chat. You can check it out. I'll share the links to all the aforementioned URLs. But yeah, we're actively engaging. We're talking to user. Chances are we if you have specific feature or data integrations that you would like to see on the platform, it's something that we pay a lot of attention for. And so I think this is a very unique time for users of AI agents, right, to express like what they want to see, what they want to be done. When we are all ears from that, and collaborating with all the projects within this space that are data integrations, and all the way down to end user, like whatever we want to see. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. And finally, where can people find you on Twitter or LinkedIn, depending on what your platform of choice is?
Yes. You can find me on exa256bits on Twitter. It's exa256bits. And yeah, I'm happy to, looking forward to chat with anyone that's interested in AI and decentralized AI.
Absolutely. Well, everyone go get involved with the tooling. I know I'm about to go use it right now for a little research report that I'm going to be putting together. So excited to interact more with Pong, and definitely go follow him on Twitter. Until the next episode, let's continue building the future of on-chain AI.